Hey course creators, welcome to today's episode of the Course Building Secrets podcast. I am thrilled that you are here today. Hey, I like this location so much that I am back here for another episode. So it may, who knows, it may be my new permanent location. All right, in today's episode, I want to talk about your materials, your videos, your workbooks, your PowerPoint decks, if you do those, and just in general, the assets that you provide to people. Okay, so when you're first getting started, we 100% recommend that you take the strategy of done is better than perfect, right? And so you're taking imperfect action. Now, I want to talk a little bit about that because yes, we teach that. Yes, 100% I believe that it's better to put something out there than to not get something out there at all. Okay, but there are certain levels to this, and so I want to just review those today because I think that there's a little confusion when people say, hey, just do an 80% solution, just do an MVP, just put your first draft out there. And all of that is 100% true. However, there's a difference between sort of putting out a draft because you don't have it like locked and loaded yet, like you're still refining the message, you're still sort of perfecting it. There's a difference between that and just being sloppy. And I want to talk a little bit about that today. And the other thing I want to cover today is just because you start there, right? You start by taking imperfect action so that you get started, and you're not really going to know exactly how to refine it until you're working with people, right? Because they're going to have questions. You think maybe you're being really clear and they're not sure, right? So there's going to be a certain amount of iteration that happens in all of your materials. And that's totally normal. At some point, you need to professionalize those rough drafts, right? Just like when you're writing a paper for school, you start with a rough draft and then you continually refine and revise it until it's a polished and finished version. You don't just like publish the rough draft, right? However, so that's one concept. I just want to be clear about that at some point in your business growth, you actually have to go back and make a final version, right? You have to make a professional version. Staying in imperfect action for your entire business career, right? Like you launch your business and then 5 years later, you're still in imperfect action mode where everything is just sort of a thrown together endeavor is not actually going to help you grow and scale your business. I'm telling you right now, like it's not going to happen. Your customers at some point are going to go, what's happening, right? Like at what point in time is this going to be professional, right? At what point in time can I have 100% confidence that they're paying attention to all of the things? So you need to be paying attention to that, right? Like, imperfect action isn't a state that you stay in forever. Okay, so that being said, when you first get started and you are doing your rough draft, there is a difference between a rough draft and sort of a sloppy draft, right? And so let me just explain what that means. So if you are, say you're building your a PowerPoint deck because you're gonna do a presentation to your customers. Now, your messaging may be a rough draft, right? You're taking imperfect action. You may not exactly have the messaging right. You may not have exactly like the key points that are going to stay the key points forever. You may need more images. You may need a professional brand. Like there may be things that you need in order to kind of lock and load it as a final version. But one thing that is not imperfect action is just slapping something together and having typos and misspellings and just random stuff that makes it look like you didn't pay attention, right? You didn't care, and it is just something that doesn't mean a lot to you because you just put it together at the last minute, right? So the perception is people are really open to taking imperfect action. They're really open to being a part of a beta, to being able to provide feedback. But that doesn't mean that they're willing and accepting sloppiness. And if you want to erode somebody's confidence, be sloppy, right? So if you put together a PowerPoint presentation, take the couple of minutes to either review it yourself and make sure there's no typos, or hand it off to somebody on your team and say, can you just review this? Look for any grammatical problems, look for any misspellings, look for anything that doesn't seem like it makes sense, so that when I present it, I'm at least presenting the best rough draft that I have at this point in time. And it doesn't take a lot of time to just spend reviewing and polishing your rough draft, right? So a rough draft does not mean sloppy draft. So I just want to be really clear about that, because what's happening in the minds of your customers as they're looking at your presentation or they're listening to your presentation is they haven't spent the time, they don't care about me, and they're not professional, right? And what happens is that they say, well, I wonder whether or not this level of detail or attention is in the deliverable of whatever it is you're delivering, right? So say, for example, you are helping somebody with their finances. If you have a PowerPoint deck that's full of typos and it just looks like it's been thrown together, is that how the customer is perceiving what you're doing with their financials? 100%, right? Like, I wonder if what they are creating over here is thorough. Are they paying attention to the details, or are they just throwing something together? And so you have to realize how your customer is perceiving that particular situation, right? If you're putting something together just in time because either you don't have time to focus on it, or you just want to be in the moment, like, it's still important to really think about the perception that that's putting out there for your people and how it starts to permeate throughout your entire business. So I was just recently at an event, and this conversation came up. There's during the presentations, there was a lot of typos. There was a lot of sort of, I would say, rookie issues that if somebody else would have just reviewed the PowerPoint decks, it would have eliminated all the problems. It just was not polished and professional. We'll just put it that way. And, for me, I tend to see all that, right? Like, part of my job is helping people, work on their materials and create digital assets. And so my brain has the red pen just automatically running through anything that I see. But so I'm aware of the fact that, like, I see all the things, right? Like, if there's a misspelling in anything, it's just like it's just like a glowing beacon, and I just see it. But so I say that because I tend to be the one who is just like, oh my gosh, okay, well, this would be a really easy fix. But we were out for dinner, and there was a conversation that was happening, and somebody brought up the PowerPoint decks had a lot of misspellings. There was a kind of a flyer that was sent out, professionally printed, probably cost, I don't know, maybe $3 to $5 each to print. And it was full of errors, full of misspellings. And it was a $4,000 program that they were launching, and it was full of issues, full of errors. In fact, one of their top headlines was misspelled. And so, you look at it and you're like, okay, well, do I want to pay $4,000 for a program that they can't even get the flyer edited, right? Like, what does that say about what's in the program? What does that say about how they're paying attention to the details of the experience? of making sure that I'm getting results, of like what's happening in the rest of their business if their materials that they're putting out there on a high ticket offer are not proofread, right? Like, to me, there's some issues going on there, right? Like, there's chaos happening if that level of basic professionalism isn't there. So again, I tend to be more critical because I'm looking for those things. I help companies kind of fix all of that in their entire business as they're looking at their customer experience. You can call it like I help come in and professionalize businesses that are running with duct tape and paper clips. Yeah, that's what I do. So again, I would expect that I would see those different things. But anyway, so we're at dinner and somebody else brings it up and they're like, well, I don't know if I want to be a part of this new program if they're not paying attention even to their PowerPoint decks or to their materials enough to get the spelling correct. And she's like, and she said that, she's like, so what else are they not paying attention to, right? Are they not paying attention to me, my particular part of the program, like, the materials, the specific things that they have to turn in order to move forward in the program, or to their results. And she's like, I love being a part of this community, but I just don't know if I want to pay a premium, pay all this money, if I don't have confidence that the business is, put together enough for me to get results and trust that, my money, all the different things that they're contributing are going to be taken care of. And a lot, so you think about it from both perspectives, right? Because of course, when she said that, I was like, yeah, that's what everyone else is thinking, right? There was probably 10 people at the table and everyone was like nodding, like, yeah, it just seems like maybe they don't have their act together, and maybe this isn't the right solution, which is a really scary place to be if you're a business owner trying to make an impact and you know that you have the ability to make the impact. You don't want your customers sitting around a table talking about something as silly as typos on different documents or on presentations. But when you don't realize how powerful that sort of nonverbal messaging is, you miss it. And you don't get why people are leaving. You don't get why there's more complaints. You don't get why people are coming up to you being like, what the heck? Like, what? Don't you have somebody to proofread your stuff, right? It's not about the typos. It's about the message that it's sending about the rest of your business. Because that's an indication that something is wrong, right? It's a symptom to the bigger problem. And the bigger problem is that if you can't take care of something so small in your house, then it sends the message that there are bigger issues that are going on that aren't taken care of. And so at some point, that MVP, that rough draft, needs to turn into a professional solution, especially as you go up in terms of a higher ticket price, right? As you go up to asking your customers to commit to you to spend more money, you also need to commit to them to create something that provides them a fast, easy, and consistent way to get the results, right? It's hard enough for people to actually take action, right? It's hard enough. We consume enough brain calories trying to learn something, kind of take something in new and adjust our behavior, adjust our skills, and move things forward, right? It's hard to do that, right? You get into a certain place where you're like, this is where I am and this is where I want to be. But in the middle, you actually have to do something, right? Like, learning isn't passive. Skill building is not passive. Behavior change is not passive. You have to do something. So your people are struggling just to get the energy to change their behavior in order to get to the desired result that they want. you creating chaos within that whole process is almost insurmountable for your customers, right? If you think about it, like if you are trying to run on the treadmill, let's just say that, right? Like, so you're trying to run on the treadmill. Maybe you're going from couch to a 5K, right? So little over 3 miles. And so you're trying to train for this 5K. So you get on the treadmill and you start small, and then, you build up to your goal of running 3 miles so that you can run this 5K. Say at the same time that you're running on the treadmill, your dog is underneath you, or the power keeps going out, or you're like somebody's throwing water on you, or like there's just all sorts of crazy obstacles that are in your path as you're trying to run. And it becomes harder and harder and harder and harder to accomplish that 3 miles if you're constantly trying to overcome hurdles and obstacles that aren't even necessary to get from point A to point B, right? And so often as business owners who are trying to scale, right? High growth companies that have done an awesome, amazing job at sales and marketing are trying to scale. They're inadvertently adding more obstacles and hurdles into their customers' path that are totally not necessary to the process, just because they're not considering how what they're doing is affecting the effort that your customer has to take. And so that's like, it's such a critical component, and it starts with something as little as a typo on a PowerPoint deck, or a typo on a marketing flyer, or on a workbook page, or not even having a workbook page, right? Like, you're presenting this amazing material and you don't have anything to help your people actually like internalize what you're teaching. You're missing the boat. You're making it more complicated. You're making it harder than it needs to be. Once that happens, and your customers are like, God, it's hard enough for me just to learn this and apply this in my own life with all the other things that I have going on. Now they're intentionally throwing extra hurdles and obstacles at me. I'm out. I can't do it. It's too hard, right? And so consider that as you're looking at how do you not only build your online empire, but when you're growing and scaling, consider all of the different things. So take imperfect action, right? Done is better than not done, right? Like, launch your thing, do your beta, but then you have to shift into how do I make sure that I'm delivering something that's not putting more obstacles and hurdles in my people's way, so that I can continue to grow, so that I can deliver the kind of experience that I want to deliver, so that my people get results, right? And then clean up your house. Make sure that you don't have silly mistakes or issues or errors that are just not necessary, right? Always have somebody just like look something over just to double check, right? Again, with the intention of how are my customers perceiving this? How am I making my people's lives easier so that they can get results, right? It's not about the information you're teaching. It is about all of the things that are happening as you're trying to help somebody get from point A to point B. So hopefully this serves you. If you want to talk more about this, or kind of get into maybe some examples that you're seeing in your business, give me a shout. In fact, if you are seeing this in your business, I would love to have you be a guest on this podcast, and we can kind of riff through like what are some ways that you can overcome that? What are some examples that would be really easy to kind of eliminate those hurdles and obstacles that you're not even meaning to put in your customer's path, so that you can continue to grow and you can continue to scale from the inside out. All right, there you go. Have a great day.